Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, fellow consumers. Once again, we are very honored to be with you on our usual Humanist TV Africa series, where we bring you the voice of consumers, where we bring you empowerment of consumers, where we bring you the nurturing of quality for consumers, where we bring you building and contributing to a consumer quality life or quality life for consumers. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I'm your host, Chimera Henry, the team leader at Consent. My co-host, Kato Mukasa Hall, wherever you are, we miss you. And we hope you will be back on the program one day. I would like to thank Dennis Bongole with all your colleagues at Humanist Media Africa, and in particular as our producer on Humanist TV Africa, always finding time on Friday to steer us. And your fellow producers, wherever stations they are in on the continent of Africa and the global world. Once again, consumers, you're most welcome. Father, I would like to welcome my colleague, the heads of program at Consent, Mr. Bernard Wambale Karos, for always joining in and bringing in insights from all perspectives. And also would like to thank you, our listeners, viewers, followers. Keep it up, share, and let's grow the subject matter of consumer protection and better business. It is key because it drives the agenda. So today, colleagues, we are still going on harnessing sustainable lives, looking at frameworks or looking at a framework for lifestyle transformation. Today, we would like to look at aspects. It is consumer responsibility to adopt zero waste. It is key. But as we will be discussing, we will also like to say it is consumer and business responsibility to adopt zero waste. And all this is something that we are going to churn around, bring in different perspectives, because harnessing a sustainable future requires a framework for sustainable lives transformation. So today, it is all about the responsibility of both consumers and business as a cardinal point to adopt zero waste. So our listeners, we are going to be with you, and we look forward for your comments, your insights, and even examples from you as a person, as a home, as a community, as a nation, and as a business, sole proprietorship, an enterprise, a company, or a corporate. We would love to see and hear from you your zero waste approaches and as your responsibility to bring about such circularity, which brings in the sustainable aspects, resiliency, and so forth. Colleagues, like we did last time, we started with a general perspective and we looked at the 5 R's: reuse, redesign, reject all, recycle, and many other aspects. So today, we would like to start once again. But I would like to start the program by saying that we need to adopt, and I would like to read a phrase that I read last time, but this time I will not comment within it. And I would like to once again lay its emphasis and say, when we create a healthy environment, where it is, whether it is our bodies, minds, or surroundings, we set ourselves up for an optimal growth and well-being. It is the context, whether it is in the context of plants, health soils, adequate nutrients, and proper care, can help them thrive. Similarly, when we prioritize our physical and mental health, we can become more resilient, more productive, and better equipped to handle life challenges. Colleagues, this mindset can be applied to various areas of life, including one, personal growth. Nurturing a healthy mindset, emotions, and relationships can help us grow as individuals. As business and career, fostering a healthy work environment with a positive company culture can lead to growth and success. Three, communities. Building healthy, inclusive, and supportive communities can help them thrive and grow. Fellow consumers and businesses, wherever you are, remember a healthy foundation is essential for growth, development, and success in all aspects of life. Life of an individual as a consumer, life of an environment, life of a business. So, a healthy foundation is very key. So, this is the background why today I would like to focus, and my colleague Bernard, on it is consumer responsibility and business responsibility to adopt zero waste. Referring back to what I have just shared with you, you'll find that it is very key. And if even when you look at it from a business perspective, from a personal one, nurturing a healthy mindset is our responsibility. Emotions and relationships, these are very key. As I would request Dennis to put up the consumer responsibilities, showing why it is very key to be a consumer responsibility to adopt zero waste. As our responsibility as consumers, we need to be critically aware of our consumption, our decisions, our emotions. How do we make choices? Critical awareness as our responsibility is to enable us be more alert, questioning about the set prices, the quality of goods and services that we intend or we have bought and we are going to utilize to make sure that our lives are sustainable. In our homes, the kind of purchases, if we go back to the 5 hours, we will find that it is very important to reuse, to recycle, even to reject when you're taking a decision and you know that this single-use polythene bag is going to impact on the environment. To redesign the way we consume food in our homes, where we prepare plenty, whereas we can only eat 1/3 and the 2/3 goes to waste. This is where it is our critical responsibility as consumers to adopt zero waste, to make sure that whatever we are consuming, whatever we are purchasing, we are not going to waste it because it was produced by resources. And if it happens that we have taken that decision and we have got a product as a byproduct, let's say we need to, let's look at it as a container. Let's use it as a leftover we will need to recycle it. We need to reuse it. In case we find that our decisions are going to lead to a non-sustainable behavior and action, we need to reject it. We need to reduce the usage of those aspects that bring waste. We need to redesign our lifestyles. So, fellow consumers, what I am sharing here, you also do businesses. You will find that if you adopt the same in your business, you need to reuse, let's say, envelope. You need to use paper. You need to reuse or multiply use human resource, ultimately use financial resources so that there is no waste. The policies that you have in your organization, in your businesses, in a country need to be implemented to realize zero waste. If we do not implement them, right from board of directors, the management, to members of staff, even to the lowest cadre in the lowest levels in the business, we need to adopt zero waste. That said, that's why I was saying, and we are laying emphasis today, that critical awareness, both for us as consumers and businesses, is very key because it nurtures us to be conscious. At home, we need not to prepare food, to use energy, to use water, to use the environment we stay in excessively. We need to have a zero waste policy, action, and principle. And if we realize that these are happening to us as consumers and businesses, this leads us to our next responsibility as consumers, which will apply also to businesses. We need to take actions by asserting and act to ensure that we get a fair deal for the environment. We get a fair deal for our resources. We don't need to waste them. We need to do savings. We need to do responsible investment. We need to do a lot of other things. We need also to prepare for the unexpected by taking action at individual level as consumers and as businesses, in that the resources that we have, we use them optimally and we do not waste them. Because once we waste them, the savings, the sustainability of ourselves and our lifestyles will not be resilient. So this is something very key we need to look on as both consumers and businesses. In businesses, we need to utilize whatever we purchase as resources to have zero waste. A circularity. We make use the 5 R's. If it is with stationery, use it to the optimum. If it is financial resources, let's see how best a single financial decision we can use it to get optimum benefits out of it. A member of staff who is doing uh, 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 catering or taking care of the welfare of staff can do also other things, so that the resources, they gain skill, they gain experiences, and they also open up visibility in other aspects. Even we need to retool them so that they understand the aspects of zero waste. Continuous training, information, and awareness, both for consumers and businesses, very key. As we roll on with zero waste as our responsibility, both as consumers and business, I would like to go to another responsibility of doing social concern. As consumers, we need to be aware of our zero waste actions. When we do zero waste, there is a lot to save. There are more resources to be used by others, but also we impact less on our fellow consumers. As businesses, we impact less on the communities that give us our social licenses to operate, whether we are a government, a local government, whether we are legislature, judicially, whether we are a private sector, a civil society organization. We need to have social concern. The decisions that we are taking, are we dumping in the environment? Are we polluting the community we are operating in? Are we impeding the welfare of others? We need to have social concern because our consumption of resources, our consumption of raw materials, our consumption of policy, our consumption and non-utilization of policy can disadvantage the national economy, can disadvantage the businesses, can disadvantage the national agendas, can disadvantage quality of consumer life, can disadvantage our communities. So social concern for us as consumers, our responsibility also can be, also is business responsibility. It is due the bearer responsibility. So the responsibility of adopting zero waste is very key. This takes me to another consumer responsibility, which is also business responsibility, which is also ministries, departments, and agency responsibility. We need to be environmentally aware, understanding that the environmental consequences of our consumption, our actions, our decisions, our policy directions can challenge individuals, can challenge society, can cause poor health. Once we pollute water, once we pollute the environment, once we pollute the air, once we wrongly behave on the environment, it greatly impedes the existing generation. It impedes the welfare. It increases the cost of health, the cost of operations in our homes, in our communities, in our businesses, and the national development. So it is very key. This is where a word responsibility in adopting zero waste. We don't need to waste resources. We don't need to waste the resources that develop policies by not implementing them. There shouldn't be governance waste. There shouldn't be local government waste. There shouldn't be community waste, and there shouldn't be household and individual waste. So this leads me to the last: consumer responsibility, business responsibility, government responsibility. We need to do solidarity. With solidarity as consumers, if we are all responsible and concerned, uh, uh, and we adopt zero waste, there will be multiplier effects. Just take the African continent. If the 1.4 or 1.5 billion we all adopt zero waste, what positive impact can you imagine that will be on the continent? Households, 1.4 to 5 billion consumer households, all adopting zero waste, advocating for zero waste in solidarity. Businesses taking on the environment, governance, and sustainable approaches, policies, decisions The one planet that we'll have will be sustainable, it will be nourished, and it will cater for our good health. So, with solidarity as consumers, as businesses, as local governments, as NGOs, as ministries, departments, and agencies, we can turn around the unsustainable approaches and we adopt the zero waste of resources socially, economically, environmentally, politically, or legally and ethically. We need to have a zero waste. We need to have that approach of circularity. We need to reuse. We need to recycle. We need to reject issues that are affecting us with zero waste. We need to refocus, redesign. We need to reduce, and then we can be a sustainable, linking it with all the SDGs, but coming into SDG 12, where we have responsible consumption and production. In and doing all of these programs that we are running, programs as an individual, programs as a home, programs as society, programs as businesses, programs as a nation. These are going to be very key to drive us. I would like to draw my first segment to conclusion as I bring in Bennett to go to consumer rights. And I would like to use one consumer right and the right to basic needs. The consumer right to basic needs is something very, very key because this brings in the aspect to adequate food. Just imagine you, if I look at it and from a zero waste perspective, as a consumer, you have a right to basic needs. And these rights of basic goods and services, which guarantee your survival, all our survival, adequate food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, and sanitation. Just imagine we enshrine zero waste in every aspect of this, our right to basic needs. Adequate food. You have access to adequate food and you waste it. Whereas they are millions, they foul statistics talk of over 600 millions globally, going to a billion who have not got access to food. You have access to adequate food, which is safe, of quality, nutritious, and you waste it. You would have wasted resources. You would have wasted, you impacted on the planet. You've wasted the natural resources, you've wasted energy, you've wasted human resource, you've wasted financial resources, you've wasted time. So you have adequate food as your basic need as a consumer, which enables you to be healthy and productive, but you waste it. So, with this aspect of zero waste, once you have adequate food and you do not waste it, there will be enough for us on the continent to consume quality, safe, nutritious, healthy foods. Secondly, if I was looking at clothing, if you have access to all this quality, fashionable, smart, beautiful clothing, and you waste it, that will impact the statistics that show the production of 1 kilo of cotton wrong constructions on site where you bring in poor quality services, doing wrong bills of quantities, doing wrong uh, procurement, you lead to waste, shelter, buildings collapse, endangering and even reaching demise, fatalities, people die because you brought in poor quality services, you made poor quality wrong decisions. Those decisions lead to waste of resources in piles of debris. Healthcare, the same. Even if we look at poor services, wrong goods and services in the healthcare, all of this includes food. Once it is poor quality, unsafe, it will lead to waste. But once it is of quality, it will be of good quality and there will be zero waste. Even the hazardous wastes that come in there will be appropriately and responsibly disposed of, reducing their waste. Education, the same applies. The same applies. Wrong education leads to waste. If we wrongly educate our children, all this would lead to waste. Wrong decisions will be made. Wrong approaches of issues will be made. And all of this will enable us having zero waste. I would like to look at sanitation in our countries. The waste that we have, well, if well managed, if it is sorted, if it is transported, it is processed, it is reused, it is redesigned, and we reject what leads to impeding the good sanitation that we have, we will have zero waste. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that I would use the consumer responsibilities to show us as consumers, as businesses, as duty bearers, as ministries, departments, and agencies, that zero waste is possible. It requires our commitment, it requires our engagement, continuous analysis, corroboration, advocacy, and we sustain the campaigns. We need to plan, do, check, and act so that we end up implementing our responsibilities for zero waste, to have a healthy environment for us, to have a healthy planet, to have a productive planet for us as consumers, for us as businesses, and for us as nations. It requires duty bearers to play their role. It requires businesses to play their role. It requires civic organizations to play their roles. And to crown it all, it requires us, the consumers, to play our role. So, zero waste is possible with our commitment. Our responsibility is an action and a platform that can enable us. So, fellow consumers, businesses, and duty bearers watching and listening in, it is possible to realize zero waste for sustainability, resilience, and circularity. Thank you very much. And I would like at this point in time to invite my colleague Bernard to come in and also give us a perspective from a technical aspect. What can we do as our responsibility to realize and adopt zero waste? Bernard, you're most welcome.
Yes, Mr. Chimera, thank you so much for the introduction. It was really very good. And I want to appreciate you for taking time to remind us of the consumer responsibilities, but also diving into the rights of the consumers. Apologies, where I am, there's a little bit of noise from the roadside. And so I don't know whether you're able to hear me clearly. So that I'm
we
sure
can
the
hear
listeners
you.
are listening. Okay. Okay, so what I just really wanted to reflect on was going back again to the basics. I have always loved the basics. I was pondering when you were discussing, and I asked myself whether we even know what a waste is. I kept on imagining whether we understand what a waste could be. And I quickly thought that maybe our listeners could want to have some bit of understanding of a waste, what actually waste is, or something of the sort, so that we can be able to. I just want to show something. Just a minute. I want to project something here that we shall use to learn. So, Mr. Chimera, you let me know if you can be able to see my slides. Mr. Chimera, are you able to see the slides?
The slide has not yet come on board. Please go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to share with us what exactly it is that we are talking about when it comes to a waste. What is it exactly that we want to talk about? So if you look at waste, it's basically things that we don't need, something that you assume you don't need, or something that you assumed is unwanted, or something that you're not using, or what other people would call unusable materials. Or waste could be a substance that people discard after primary use. You've used something and then you throw it away, or something that you would consider as worthless, or something that you'd think is defective, or something that you would assume it is of no use. So that is what we would look at as a waste. But if you use the word waste as a verb, it will mean that you're looking at something without care. Something that is bad, something that you use but without thought, without a second thought, or something that you are using without necessarily thinking about. So those are some of the definitions that we could look at, looking at waste as a verb, but also waste as a definition. Now I tried to ask myself another question: what exactly do we waste? There are a lot of things that actually go to waste. One of the things that we waste is actually food. A lot of food is actually wasted. You will actually learn that when you go to the landfills, almost more than 75% of what is in the landfills are actually waste. So I rather food items, and more so the food that actually can still be eaten, but because we are unconsciously handling the food, we end up throwing it away. I tried to provide some slides there, just to show the magnitude of the waste that we have in Uganda, in the different areas. If you look at our landfills, if you look at your dust bins, if you look at your waste bins at home, if you look at different market areas, if you look at everywhere you move, you will see that there's a lot of waste that we need to think about. So I hope that for this particular slide, Mr. Chimera, you should be able to see the vegetable waste in the different areas.
We can see them.
Okay, so this is just a manifestation of people go to discard things that they feel they don't need, but actually when you go where they have discarded them, you realize that you have mangoes which must have been eaten by someone else. You find oranges that people could have eaten. You find all sorts of food that actually people would have eaten. Unfortunately, while about 40% of the vegetables and fruits produced in this country are thrown away, we are aware that we are struggling with malnutrition. We are struggling with people sleeping hungry. We are struggling with children with deficiencies of nutrients, which can actually be gotten from the vegetables. But you see that every landfill you'll go to, it's having vegetable or food waste. So you see how we lose food just sometimes unconsciously, but also sometimes consciously. You just imagine someone is living alone and they go and buy food that they can never eat, and so they cook it and they never eat it. They even serve it on their plates, but they can't eat it. So you find that some food, and that food ends up in a waste bin. So these are the problems that we are talking about. These are the challenges that we're actually talking about. These are the issues that if we don't address, they are going to lead us to problems. Now, away from, of course, these are all about the food, the different areas where we just discard food the way we want. And unfortunately, after generating food waste, then we go and even start setting up stalls where there is waste. So you see that alone can generate other challenges. Apart from waste, you may end up now having disease manifestations, because these wastes, they go and decompose, they attract microorganisms like bacteria, virus, fungus and others, which can actually lead to disease. So you find that in areas where there is a lot of waste or mismanagement of waste, there is always high prevalence of disease, because microorganisms that actually can bring disease, they also prefer living in areas with nutritious vegetables or fruits, but you've thrown them away. So there's a whole risk of disease prevalences in areas where we just discard a lot of waste. Just like you can see in our cities, in our different communities, waste is all over and waste is not being collected. But who is generating this waste? Unfortunately, this is waste that is coming from edible parts of the food that actually someone else would have eaten. So while other people are throwing away, many other people are sleeping hungry. So there's a lot of starvation. Many people are food insecure. Many people are malnourished, but a lot of food is being discarded. If you look at our regions, if you go to Karamoja, people may die of hunger, while the people in the West have too much and they don't even know where to put the food. So you find that there are those dynamics that we need to deal with as a country, that we need to deal with as households, that we need to deal with as individuals, avoiding wastage, ensuring that if you serve the food or you purchased food, that food must be eaten fully. Of course, we have other forms of waste, and one of them is the clothing, fabric, textile. People buy clothing that they cannot use. So for instance, we have people who have wardrobes, but those wardrobes have clothing that they have never put on for the last 1 year. Someone has shoes and they have never put them on for the last 1 year. So many people have so many things that they cannot use. They have too much that they cannot use. I think the advice here would be that if you have something that you've taken 1 year without wearing, it would be nice that you give it off to another person. Many are the times when people have so many things kept in their houses and they're not using them, they just pack them in a sack and throw them away. And when they throw them away, where do they end? These clothing actually end up in refills, they end up in landfills, they end up in waste bins, they end up in water sources, they end up in wrong places. And at the end of the day, imagine if you have fabric, just like you can see in those pictures, a lot of clothes, they don't rot, remember, so they will be there, not rotting. And what are they causing to the soil? What are they causing to the environment? What are they causing to nature? So you realize that because of people just people being unserious and cautious, people not taking concern, we end up throwing clothing and every other thing away from our homes, and they end up in fields. And what happens when it rains, most of these clothing now will wipe away and they go into the water sources. Mind you, it is those water sources where you are picking the water that you're actually drinking. That is where people in communities out there are fishing. That's where people are deriving livelihood from the water. That is the same water that is producing electricity, and so the turbines keep getting clogged because of the clothing that we just keep throwing away. So at the end of the day, why do you have what you can't use? And how do you dispose of what you don't need is a question that we are discussing today. The issue of trying to have as much zero waste as possible. How are other countries doing it? We need to learn from other countries. What happens is that if someone has been wearing their cloth and they are not able to put it on again, they will go and put it in a common place where these clothing will be picked, they are treated, and they are sent to areas or to countries where people can actually still reuse them. That's why in Uganda you see many of us put on second-hand clothes. Why are they called second-hand? They were actually first-class or first-hand clothing in some countries where they came from. Someone was even wearing it off, and then at times that, well, I cannot put it on. So instead of throwing it away, they take these clothes to different collection centers, and these clothes are picked. And when they are picked, they can be treated, packaged, and then sent to us, and people are wearing them. So that is another strategy how other developed countries have dealt with second-hand clothing, just to avoid waste, to ensure that we avoid waste. I have seen in the Muslim communities and the Catholic communities during the fast seasons, people are requested to actually take to churches or to mosques things that they cannot use but they can be reusable by other people. That is a strategy actually of managing waste, of assuring that there's no waste that is accumulating in their households. Now, what is the impact of these things? You find that now you have all these plastics, you have all these clothing, you have all these wastes go into our water streams, they go into the drainage channels, and then you find Kampala flooding. That even people die because of the floods that are in Kampala, because not just because the drainage is not there. Sometimes the drainage is available, but it is being clogged by waste, either from polythene or from papers or from pampers or from clothing, etc. But why is this so? Because we are not cognizant of what we are throwing away, and so they end up in our channels, and when they go into our channels, we see them blocked, and when they block out and rain comes, of course you know how flooding happens. Some people are swept away, some buildings are broken down, the roads are cut off, etc. Just because we mismanage waste, just because we are not cognizant of how best we can actually handle the waste. So at the end of the day, we see prevalence of disease. If you look at that woman in that first photo, she is picking waste from the drainage system because she's worried that this water is going to flood. So she's trying to remove the waste from that, but she's using her bare hands. And this is a consumer who has to live tomorrow. But look at how she enters that water, sacrifices herself so that she saves the community or probably population. So when she gets sick, who is responsible for this sickness? Where do we dispose our waste? How do we dispose? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. What about the water sources? You find a lot of bottles, they have been washed away from wherever you dumped them, and they are now near the water sources. They are just next to the water sources. And when they are next to the water sources, what happens? They are entering into the water and they are distorting aquatic life. Now, when aquatic life is distorted, an example is fish, or the different kinds of fish, it means that you are distorting the habitats of fish, and fish is food for human beings. Now, the fish is in contaminated water, it means also the fish gets contaminated. And at the end of the day, we are the ones eating that same contaminated fish. But who is contaminating the fish? It is us who are actually contaminating the fish by our practices that are weird. People just throw things anywhere. And I think also when it comes to policy or regulations or guidelines or laws, whatever it is, I think the country has failed to put up stringent rules, regulations, guidelines, policies. Actually, they exist, but the enforcement has been a challenge. So the question here would be, how do we encourage our governments to really execute what they're supposed to do, their mandate? How can we have all this pollution? And by the way, at the end of the day, the challenge comes in as climate change. So whereas people think about climate change as a result of cutting down the trees, the biggest issue is around waste management. Because if you look at the waste bins, the amount of methane and the amount of other greenhouse gases that are produced in a landfill, it cannot leave the weather or the climate the way it was. So by all means, these gases are produced, go and heap up there in the sky. They go to the ozone and destroy it, and you can never see rains. So you start experiencing heavy rains, but in a very short time, or you start having very high temperatures, and this is how it is manifesting as climate change issues. So whenever we are coming with interventions that are coming to address climate change, we cannot just think about tree planting alone. Tree planting is one good action, but then the other would be managing waste as much as possible. We need to learn from other countries. I have seen countries that don't have waste. What they are doing, I think one of the best examples of the countries that have managed waste, that even they are succeeding when it comes to the SDGs, one of them has been Denmark. There is an island there, Bornholm Island. For them, they are really focused on zero waste, a society that is free of waste. And what they are doing is they have gone away from having a landfill. They don't want to see a landfill in their program. So that when you're generating waste, you are not going to take it to a landfill. The landfill is not there. So what they do is government is able to pick sorted waste from households, and then they go and make sense out of it, either fertilizer or manure, whatever it is, and then also they can recycle that waste. So they don't have these landfills. That is one step the government took. But what they are doing is that the moment they collect this waste from households, they have advanced recycling technologies that they are able to use this waste, recycle it, reuse it, redesign it, etc. So we need to learn from such. I have also seen in Slovenia, it has been the same. Slovenia is actually even exceeding the EU targets when it comes to waste management. So what they are doing is that they have very strict waste separation policies. If they came to your home and you have generated waste, but this waste is not separated, decomposable and undecomposable in different containers, or if you may drop waste wherever you want to drop it, you'll be arrested. So they have managed it in such a way that they will come and pick themselves from your place, your home area, or your house, but it must be sorted appropriately, and then they can take it where it is supposed to go, and they can reuse it, recycle it, redesign it, and do so many things out of the waste. If Slovenia has done it, Denmark has done it, I think that we must benchmark and see how are they doing it, and how best can we learn from them. Of course, this requires a lot of investment, and so governments must invest in some of these things. Why should people in a country such as ours, that is blessed with everything, why should people die of waste? People remain orphans, people become widows and widowers, people are misplaced because of waste. How does that come? And we are busy trying to use resources for other things. I think it's high time that our leaders try to think about how best we can manage this issue of waste. And I think the other reflection I wanted to have is what practices bring about waste? Why do we have a lot of waste anyway as us? If you look at our shopping mechanisms, the way Ugandans shop, it is unnecessarily wasteful. For instance, if you drive a car and you are going to the supermarket, so you are driving to the supermarket, you are going to get, let us say, you are going to buy milk. Let us say, for instance, just milk, which is already packed in a polythene. And then in the supermarket, they put one sachet of milk, which is already packed. Then they put for you in another kavera. And then you buy bread, it's already packed in another kavera. Then they add another packaging kavera now for you to carry home. And then you go and buy, let us say, margarine and cooking oil and whatever. Each of the items you're purchasing from a supermarket, they are actually packing it again in a polythene bag. But you've just packed outside there, outside the supermarket. So why do you carry home 10 polythene bags, and yet you could actually carry none? So why wouldn't you get that the shopping trolley, put your things and just come and put them in the car? Why do you have to carry 10 polythene bags from a supermarket and you take them home? Remember, if you're a husband, your wife has also gone. She will also come with 10 buveras or polythene bags. If you have even a child, you have pampers. The pampers which you can never burn and you can never throw in a latrine or a toilet. You cannot flush them in a toilet. So at the end of the day, your household alone is generating waste that you cannot actually deal with. And at the end of the day, many of you will give it to cyclists, border guys, and they go and dump it in west lines, or you go and dump it in drainage systems, just because we are not careful. Why can't you buy, for instance, a reusable bag, so that every time you're going shopping, you're going with that bag, and so you keep on heaping your things in a bag, and you come and put it in your car, something that you can use over and over again. And I think this unconsciousness is what is causing trouble when it comes to waste management. And maybe some of us want to be seen that you're carrying so many polythenes, and so you've done a lot of purchase, maybe you've done a lot of shopping, but that is not the issue. Why can't you have one bag that you come with in the market? If you're going to buy your potatoes, your matoke, whatever, and you carry it, that one bag. If you're going to buy milk from dairy, why can't you move with a jug, so that they put your milk in a jar rather than actually packing for in a conveyor? Why wouldn't people do that? I think there's a lot of consciousness that we need to develop over the time, so that our people are able to understand these things, because they are doable, they are simple, but I think we are just lacking a kind of awareness and someone to tell us how best we can do that. I have seen many times when someone is, let us say you want to buy drinking water, and then you know that you are traveling a long distance, and so you need more than one bottle of water. So someone buys a small bottle, drinks it, puts it, drops the bottle, moves on, goes to another station, you buy another one, move on, drink, throw it away. Why wouldn't you buy one tin that you can actually consume more than once? I mean, it's just about the logic of doing things. I have seen people who are, I don't know how I can name it, but we want to generate waste in our homes, and we are not able to deal with it, and so we end up discarding it anyhowly anywhere we want to go. So what could be the impact of all these practices? People will fall sick because of poor hygienic or sanitary practices that are coming from over accumulation of this waste. Secondly, if people don't fall sick, others will die. In Uganda, we have a case. People died in Chitezi just because of waste erupting and started people. People died. People were left orphans. People were left, sick, mentally ill. People are displaced just because of waste. The other issue would be that other people, if they don't die, then we see that issues of climate change come in. Those are all impacts of mismanagement of waste. And then we also have food safety concerns that come as a result of poor disposal of waste. Just imagine when you've used a chemical for spraying your garden or your crops, and then you go and dump the packaging material for that for that chemical. Women or other people will come and pick them, and whenever they pick those bottles, they can go and use them actually for packing salt at our homes. People can use them for other things, and all those challenges come in. So the question is, why don't we do really our best to make sure that we push this agenda of zero waste? We need to think about how best we can manage our waste. Now, if you look at my next slide there, you will learn what I've just been talking about, how these bottles, the polythenes, the plastics, whatever, how they just enter into the drainages. You can see how those bottles are really inside there, and it is heavily raining and people are going to flood. So all those are issues that we need to deal with. So this is maybe the last vivid example of how, if you go to Kampala town, you see bottles and polythene and food and everything inside those trenches. And I mean, you know what is happening in a country. So there's a lot of flooding that happens. So we need to do a lot of work, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure that we avoid being victims of generators of too much waste. We need to think about how do we reuse our waste, how do we recycle, how do we redesign. And I think I can have a calling to government as we end up the show. There are quite a number of things that we can do. One of them is, for instance, we need a lot of community awareness. We need to build the capacity of communities on how they can deal with waste. And I think if we don't do that, then there's a problem. So I think that we need to do a lot of awareness to the communities that we are serving. We need to move out there and build the capacity. We need to do a lot of kind of sensitization using the different platforms that we have. I think with that we can be able to do a lot. With governments, we need to invest. We need to invest really in recycling waste, because people as individuals may not be able to do much, but we need the technology to recycle these things. We need technology, we need the specialities, we need capacity to do all these things. So as governments, we need to invest in recycling technologies so that people can be, as we are saying, okay, recycle. What is the technology to use to recycle should come in the
Thank you very much, Bernard. I'm sorry, it must have been a technical glitch. But as we do go to draw to the conclusion, I just want to upload a small video, and we see how funny some of the the, the actions, like we were saying earlier, that we require all players to be responsible and take on to their respective actions. Just look at that video there. Duty bearers are safeguarding abusers, dumping the waste into the channel. If you refer to a number of Bernard's slides, presentations, so the law and order officer is facilitating law breakage. So these are issues that, as society, through solidarity, we can speak out against such activities, and also urge fellow citizens not to carry out such activities. So you'll find that most of this waste can be recycled, can be used for many other aspects. So that said, colleagues, as we draw to the conclusion, Bernard brought in very interesting aspects where I also alluded to them earlier, right from the duty bearers, as in government ministries and departments, businesses, civil society organizations, religious or civic institutions, and as consumers. It is our responsibility to have and adopt zero waste for sustainability, the resiliency of our community. We have no planet B. Lots of resources will be saved, lots of lives will be saved, lots of the environment will be saved, the quality of life will be improved, and there will be enough resources for us all. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for listening in to us and watching us. And we look forward to next Saturday, so next Friday. Still, we will be focusing on sustainability, sustainable lifestyles, and other aspects that require us to live a responsible, resilient, circular life. So thank you very much for listening in. And Bernard, I'm very sorry about the technical glitch. Communication on Friday is usually a challenge, but All the sharing was greatly appreciated, and I would like to thank you very, very much for listening in. Lastly, to our hosts and our partners, the Humanist TV Africa parent agency, Humanist Media Africa, for always hosting us and enabling us to improve qualities of life. I wish you a superb weekend and look forward to being with you next Friday. Those that are Catholics, to be our Good Friday, but we will be bringing in good news to enable you improve your quality of life. I wish you all the best. Cheers and bye bye.